The Braves are making moves, and Thanksgiving's almost here. Logan, Whaley, and myself, I'm Bryce Koon. We're going to talk about what are the Braves cooking up. Alex Anthopoulos is getting pretty fun here before Thanksgiving commences. Trades, signings, rumors, and more on today's episode of Chopaholic.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Bryce Koon and Logan Whaley. Logan, we had to delete the latest podcast because it was already outdated by the time we were releasing it because Atlanta is making moves. Logan, happy early Thanksgiving. You're decked out in the gear. How you doing, my man?
Man, happy Thanksgiving to you. Doing great. And I feel like that's just been a theme so far. It feels like every episode we record, some big Braves news happens and immediately outdated, and just our luck. So if you're listening to this, just know that the next biggest Braves move will happen soon. Maybe some Thanksgiving surprises. Who knows?
And that's why, look, we're recording this on Tuesday. It's coming out Tuesday afternoon. Like, I'm about to edit this as quickly as possible and put this out on the interwebs because we can't afford, Logan, I'll do this. I'll post it, and you're going to send me a tweet. Atlanta signs Sonny Gray, 4 years, $675 million. But, we're going to talk about that today. But, man, Look, we recorded that podcast, and the next day, it just starts flying. And so really the biggest thing is we kind of talk about the overarching storyline here is it feels like Alex Anthopoulos, much to a lot of fans' pleasure, is cooking something up. I know some of the trades, Logan, it hurts the fan in us because, look, we love the players that have been associated with our favorite team for, the past couple of years, 5-6 years now. But what do you make of the Braves' latest trades that they have gone out? And we'll review it here. Kyle Wright to Kansas City. He wasn't going to be a part of the picture this year. Mike Soroka, obviously gone. Jared Schuster, gone. I mean, a lot of players, and I know I'm probably Shoemake, Nick Anderson. Yeah. Kansas City also just has an influx of Atlanta Braves talent, too. But what do you make of the Braves' latest moves? What does it kind of signal that this front office is doing?
Well, you look at the national attention, and it was the first one, obviously, getting Aaron Bummer. And I think a lot of people looked at that trade and thought, oh my gosh, what is Atlanta doing? They gave up so many pieces. But I think a lot of people view the name value of those guys, like your Mike Sorokas and Nicky Lopez was somebody. I tell you, of that trade, Nicky Lopez, that kind of hurt the most. I feel like it legitimately felt like Nicky Lopez for Aaron Bummer, which honestly, not a bad trade. I don't think. Braves are kind of running low on lefty arms in the bullpen, especially after Brad Hand, is a free agent now.
Entered, yeah. Right.
Well, and Aaron Bummer too. You look at the stats that go beyond. I mean, the ERA is going to be the first thing that sticks out, but you go beyond that. Dude, his pitch mix is nasty. It is going to be tough for lefties to hit against him. And I look at the prior success he had. I think last year was more of an outlier than anything. And you get a guy like that for 3 years of team control. I'm in on that move. And considering who else the Braves added in free agency, this bullpen is looking fantastic for this upcoming season. As for the Royals trade, with Kyle Wright going, that hurts. But I think, between this and Brandon Woodruff, I wonder if GMs are kind of looking at shoulder injuries as like the death knell for a pitcher's career. That was my takeaway from it. I legitimately believe that, Anthopoulos, and you hate to say, he gave up on him, but he gave up on him pretty much. Yeah. Because you look at the injury that he was coming back from this year, just to get re-injured, and especially with it being a shoulder now. I really believe that, it's like, it's okay. Kansas City, you can rehab him. You can try to make him into something. I still don't see any potential in who the Braves got in return, but if anyone can make something out of nothing, it is this Braves staff. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, very interesting. And I think the overall theme from all of it is Alex Anthopoulos is up to something.
Yeah, he's up to something. And Logan, we kind of see the money that he's cleared off the books for 2024. Kyle Wright was going to sit on your roster, and he was going to command, a decent penny. You had obviously guys like Nicky Lopez that would have commanded some money. And I'm not saying those guys would have broke the bank, but look, the Braves are teetering on that luxury tax type of deal. They could still go over it. We're going to talk about the deals for Bummer and then the contract for Lopez later, or Ronaldo Lopez later on in the show. I think the two things that stuck out to me was 40-man roster space. Like the amount of 40-man roster spots. And for folks that may be brand new to the podcast, brand new to Braves baseball, it's essentially guys that you can call up from the minor leagues that maybe aren't on your 26-man roster, that aren't going to affect you having to designate anyone for assignment, place them on waivers. It's opening up spots where it feels like maybe Anthopoulos, to me, Logan, looked at this roster, sat down with Brian Snicker. You loved the guys you had, but you say, if we could tinker, because I'll say this, kind of the first 15 of this Braves roster is the best in baseball. When you start to get to the back half and where Anthopoulos has said where championships are won, maybe they felt like they needed to tinker to have the best 40-man roster so that they can have roster flexibility. That's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah, and it's kind of an underrated aspect of last season too, I believe, because you look at the lineup and you marvel at it because it was historic, but you go to the bench and the options that were there, it kind of limited, really. I mean, Nicky Lopez was a great addition down the stretch, but after that, I mean, Vaughn Grissom had the last at bat in the NLDS. And look, love Vaughn Grissom, love the potential, but it was very clear in that moment. I think Anthopoulos might have looked at that and said, you know what, we need to get even deeper. And we need to clear out some space to really make room for some of those guys, because there are a lot of guys in this free agency that could make really, really good additions on this Braves bench. And you kind of wonder which direction Anthopoulos is going to go. Is he really going to attack starting pitching, which, based on the report that Aaron Nola got offered a pretty good deal by the Braves, that may be the direction he goes. But again, left field's a hole. And I think, the bench is another hole right now you got to look at.
Yeah, outside of Travis d'Arnaud or Sean Murphy, whoever's not catching, look, you kind of go back to, and it's kind of crazy to think about, some of the bench players that have played a role for the Braves, but especially with the addition of the full-time DH, it has changed the way, especially National League GMs want to construct, there's 4 or 5 guys, because one, you probably have an extra spot for a bullpen arm because you're not really going to use as many bench players throughout the course of a season. But you got to be kind of careful because, look, not everyone's Orlando Arcia like he was at the beginning parts of last year, where he just, burst onto the scene in the sense of he'd have a pinch hit appearance and have a big double, not play for 3 or 4 days. You have to have a good mix, especially, I think, and especially it has to be more well thought out how you spin those bench roles. And so I think this was more of a tinkering on the edges of the roster, because I do believe, hey, it's Thanksgiving, the meat and potatoes, the turkey and dressing of this roster, it is what it is. It's how can you add auxiliary pieces around it, Logan, to make it back to what you have to win a World Series, because you and I both know stars are going to shine in the brightest moments, but oftentimes it's, what's the reliever that Philly had this year that got called up and was just gassing everybody. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about. It's those guys that you don't think of in spring training. I think that's where Atlanta saw, okay, Arizona had a couple of those. Philly had a couple of those. LA, the Dodgers have always had a couple of those. I mean, when you look at it, to me, it's the additions around it. And, we can also sit here and say and take another spin of this. This was a play when you talk about contract and money purposes. They were in on Aaron Nola. And I want to say this. I really wanted Aaron Nola. I texted you right when Nolan was pitching against the Braves. I said, bring this guy back down to the South. From Baton Rouge, went to LSU, all the great stuff. But credit to Philly for, one, recognizing that your biggest rival right now is trying to get him, that you're both on you're in a championship window. And look, they ponied up the money. I can't fault Atlanta if the reports are true, which we were talking about beforehand. It was around 6. We think was it 6, 150, 152?
I think it was 160, maybe.
160. Okay,
that's what I thought. I think it was a Philadelphia newspaper maybe that reported that. So again, I haven't seen anything nationally about that, but I mean, every rumor was the Braves were in on Nola, so it would not surprise me if that did turn out to be true.
I don't know. Look, I'm not the kind of fan that gets like up in arms about team like not getting someone when you make a legitimate push. The Braves, if that offer is true or in the neighborhood, and look, we know AA keeps a lot of things close to the vest, so I don't know how true necessarily that would be. if that's the ballpark they were playing in, they're playing in the right ballpark. You know, they're playing in the right on the right playground. But two, it shows, and I want to get your input on this, that they're willing, and we're going to talk about, you know, some rumors of another starting pitcher. It shows that they are willing to fix this need and understand the importance of that number 3 spot in the rotation and what it happens to mean for championship aspirations.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, going back to Nola, I think maybe it was the years, right? Because I don't know if any other team was going to go 7 years for Aaron Nola. You know, he's already entering kind of the back half of his career. But again, you're absolutely right. I think it does show Anthopoulos is willing to spend, and that is a big thing, because you look at the guys who are still available. I mean, you know, I think Sonny Gray is going to command a good contract. I think, you know, obviously, Yoshinobu Yamamoto is just posted, right, and so he's going to be kind of the next big name, I think, that goes. Curious to see if the Braves are going to be in on that, but no, I think you're absolutely right. The fact that these trades happened, and look, it didn't really save a whole lot of money, but at the same time, the fact that Anthopoulos has said payroll's going up and he's making cuts, it tells you he's at least he's preparing to shape his roster and take the roster a certain direction. And that's something that, as a Braves fan, I feel like is exciting, because, okay, well, there's a plan here, and you may not know where the plan's going, but, it's going to be good. And two, it's funny because, Lance Lynn going to the Cardinals was, a move that was hilarious to see Cardinals Twitter just up in arms about. They absolutely hated that move. I mean, Lance Lynn getting $10 million. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. That's weird. I didn't love that.
It's so gross.
I will say, pitching markets are definitely elevated, inflated, but Lance Lynn getting $10 million at this stage in his career, like, this isn't Lance Lynn of 2 or 3 years ago, 200 plus innings guy. I mean, this is Lance Lynn that's seriously struggling to be a 4th or 5th guy in the rotation, and you just paid him $10 million. So
right.
I don't.
And the Cardinals do need pitching, but if it turns out that Lynn is going to be your 5, then maybe that's okay. But golly, that was a rough one. And I did see a meme of there's some stat, and I think it was probably strikeouts per 9 that Nola and Lance Lynn had like exactly the same numbers on. I think the Cardinals fan was trying to make that a positive spin, but was just getting absolutely roasted in the comments about it. Oh, it was funny. It was hilarious.
Well, look, I mean, obviously a lot of Braves favorites. Look, Mike Soroka, I hope that he gets an opportunity in Chicago. And we mentioned this on the podcast that never appeared. It kind of felt like Soroka was going to have to get a shot with a roster. I mentioned Oakland, but Chicago makes sense too. Rebuilding organization that needs to find different things. Kyle Wright, I still think Kyle Wright has top end stuff and top end potential. Atlanta's in a spot, and I like this. I'm reading MLB trade rumors as we go on to our next segment. It says that, it's a win now Atlanta team that can afford to target specific players that it considers finishing touches to a championship caliber roster. And I think that explains the take of what the Braves have done here early on so far. Logan, we move on to the additions of Aaron Bummer and Ronaldo Lopez. Now let's talk about Bummer here just a second. I think we can honestly say, and I know you're more the analytically driven guy on this show, Bummer, you're getting Bummer for the peripherals. Like you're getting Bummer for what he has been, not this past year. I will offer this, then I'll hand it over to you. I was talking, do a podcast down here every Friday with Mikey Matuk and Jared Mitchell. Mikey Matuk played in the bigs for a little bit, and he was with Chicago in 2021. And I said, all right, tell me about Aaron Bummer. I'm a big Braves fan. Tell me about him. He said, man, Bummer is filthy. He said, like, when he's on from that angle, left-hander, and throwing it hard, he said, as a right-handed hitter, he's going to come inside, and try to, just break your hands. And then he's going to be able to break something off pretty slow. He said, I love that pickup for Atlanta. And honestly, when you get away from, those guys being favorites of Braves fans, it makes a lot of sense. So that's the professional opinion. Our amateur opinion we'll take now. Logan, your thoughts on this move and what Bummer brings to the table?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the analytics, right? And again, if you go to the stats page, you're going to see the ERA first. I would argue to look beyond that. And look, I'm not saying to totally dismiss it, because look, he was hit hard last year. That is for sure. And it's so interesting, looking at the StatCast page, because he was hit hard, but he wasn't barreled often, which to me, I feel like tells you regression's coming in one of those fashion. And again, you look at a Pitching Ninja, that the Twitter page, right? And he's going to be a mainstay on there too. So I mean, he is nasty. He's got good stuff. But again, I think it goes back to again, just what you get in Aaron Bummer. And look, 3 years you have him under control. He's a lefty, which again, lefty bullpen arms, they're at a premium, right? And to get someone like Aaron Bummer, who truthfully, this is kind of a buy low on him, because you've seen the production he's had in the past. He's had really good production in the past. He's been a very, very solid reliever for Chicago. And to bring him here to Atlanta for championship contender, right? That's going to be another big thing. And look, he's not going to be asked to do too much, because you have AJ Minter there. You have Iglesias there. You have Jimenez there. You have now Ronaldo Lopez there. So Braves have so many options out of that bullpen, and depth never hurts. And this is at worst a really solid depth addition. But at best, you're looking at a guy that could come in some high leverage spots, whenever lefties are in the lineup, and, be that shutdown option.
Yeah, and two, look, you're going to have AJ Minter as kind of the high leverage guy. You're going to get back Tyler Matzik. I think we have to be, see how he comes along at spring training. But Logan, if you're telling me you're rolling into 2024 with Matzik, Minter, and Bummer as your three lefties, look, that's going to be better than Lucas Letke that they had this past season. I mean, that is a nice little threesome to have as the pitchers from the left-handed side. And you're also, look, you're going to have Raisel Iglesias. You're going to have Pierce Johnson, Joe Jimenez. This is starting to transpire and move, I feel like, into maybe what was a top 15, top 20, to maybe into that top 10, top 7 or 8 category of a bullpen. And then you get to see guys that maybe make the next step. And, our fan favorite that I think is going to get a minor league contract, and I hope he does, Jesse Chavez, that just seemingly just pitches out of his mind when he wears a Braves uniform. But this bullpen, I think that's something else too. You're noticing that the AA is placing an emphasis on that, and it brings us to the next one, Ronaldo Lopez, which is who is going to get stretched out. Justin Toscano of the AJC was kind of one of the first guys in on this as a starter. But Logan, you said right before the show, to get him at an average annual value, I think it's $10 million. What was it, 3 for 33 or 3 something, 11 million?
Yeah,
that's a steal for a guy that can really be a swing player out of your rotation in your bullpen.
Well, and consider this year's salary. He's only going to get paid $4 million this upcoming season. And to have a guy that could potentially, he could contend for that 5th spot if all goes well. And again, this is a guy that's made several starts in the past. And I look at that. I mean, that's huge. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. He's a fireballer out of the bullpen, and that's something the Braves really needed this offseason. So I love the addition. I really do, because I think it's that flexibility the Braves were possibly looking for, because how many guys last year made spot starts? I mean, there were quite a few guys, and the Braves didn't win very many of those games, right? I think they may be looking at Ronaldo Lopez as somebody that if you need him to, possibly make a spot start here and there. And I love that, truthfully, if it works out well. And that's the beauty of this offseason and spring training, to see if this is going to work. And honestly, for $4 million, it's the lowest risk you could possibly take, because you're not paying this guy to be a starter. Not at all.
You're not. And look, you look at Lopez's career arc. I mean, it really took off for him when he was moved to the bullpen in Chicago after coming over. I got a little fun fact for a little trivia, if we may here. Lucas Giolito, Dane Dunning, and Ronaldo Lopez went to Chicago for the Adam Eaton trade. And that's just an absolute nuts trade from the Washington Nationals. So Lopez gets to Chicago. He moves the bullpen. This is a guy who, he became one of the sport's most dominant bullpen arms over the last couple months of 2022. He had a 1.54 ERA, 29% strikeout rate, and a 3.1% walk rate. Logan, if it doesn't work out as a starter, and we're going to talk about this in the final segment, I still think Atlanta goes and gets a starter. But if it doesn't, you have a bona fide, I mean, this is a really, really good bullpen and a guy that you feel like could go 2 or 3 innings and shut down some players. Which, look, they did that in
Right.
2021. The guys did that for Atlanta.
Absolutely. Lopez was an all-star too, was he not? One of the years?
I believe he might have been. You might have been right in that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, even just that, which I mean, look, all-star is what it is, right? Bryce Elder was an all-star this year. But yeah, Ronaldo Lopez is a guy, as you mentioned, the options are like limitless as far as what he can be for the Braves. And I think that versatility really is attractive. And yeah, and the contract's even better. I mean, legitimately it's backloaded, and I just think it's a really good deal for the Braves.
I want to touch on this because it does kind of go into the fact, and you look at Lopez, what this 2023 version of him was. As a reliever, he's a 2-pitch guy, fastball, hard slider. He does have a changeup and a curve, Logan, that he does use. And look, he's had seasons where he actually used both of those at a 20% clip or higher. So, I think a lot of the discussion of, well, you can't be a starter and have 2 pitchers, and we see Spencer Strider trying to buck that trend. This is a guy that it wouldn't be like introducing something brand new to him. And I think that's a part of the reason why Atlanta liked him, of saying, look, he has the ability to mix in the changing curve, and it's not going to mess up his repertoire.
Yeah, for sure. And, again, the fastball is very, very good. That's another thing too. Yeah. Oh gosh. And the velocity that's there, and that was a big need, entering this offseason, I believe, for the Braves, is just, in the bullpen, there, not very many fireballers, and even in the rotation, just not a lot of guys that, other than Strider, can just, pump gas up there. So I love the Braves adding velocity. I think that's going to be a big key, for this season too.
We move on to our final topic of conversation, and hopefully we get out of here before any breaking news happens, Logan. The Sonny Gray rumors continue to heat up. Look, you've had so many reports. You mentioned St. Louis earlier. The Cardinals are definitely going to be on Sonny Gray in the idea of needing to add continued starting pitching. If they're willing to pay $10 million for Lance Lynn, then I think the Braves might be out of the Sonny Gray sweepstakes if St. Louis is going to commit that type of money to Lance Lynn. The Dodgers are also going to be a suitor for Sonny Gray. They need pitching as well. Atlanta, the way they aggressively pursued Aaron Nola, to all kind of the reports that have been circulating on social media and amongst, the baseball writers, it feels like Sonny Gray, and we talked about this in our opening episode, is right in the wheelhouse. Like, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if, Saturday, maybe let Sonny Gray and his family eat some turkey, and then Friday they say, hey, let's get the Braves jersey on you. I want to get your thoughts on Sonny Gray, and then we'll talk a little bit about Yamamoto. But your thoughts on Sonny Gray as this thing kind of continues to heat up, because, look, good pitcher, and it feels like it's in the Braves' wheelhouse. Yeah,
absolutely. And you look at a guy that's, entering the later stages of his career, a guy who has a lot of experience. Last year, obviously, Cy Young contender, right? He was a guy that was just locked down for the Twins, and that's a fantastic addition to any roster. But for the Braves, you're bringing him in as a number 3, which is incredible, because he could honestly make a case to be a top 2 guy just about anywhere else. For the Braves, he'd be a number 3, and he would be a perfect guy, because look, you'd push Morton to a 4, and then the 5, free for all in spring training, and that's going to be a fantastic competition to watch if that is the case. And you bring Sonny Gray in, that to me raises everybody else up. But again, the price, I'm curious to see how high it goes, but I don't think he gets anything more than 3 to 4 years, and that's something that I think is in Anthopoulos' wheelhouse. Because look, and I know the Nola report was the Braves offered 6 years, but that's something that was out of the norm for Anthopoulos. He normally doesn't offer these long-term contracts in free agencies. You see a lot of 1-year prove-it deals with Anthopoulos, or even then, short 2, 3, 4 years. And I think that's going to be the right range for the Braves. And Bryce Sonny just seems like he's somebody that has been linked to the Braves, I think, his entire career. It's bound to happen at some point.
Like when he was in Oakland, Cincinnati, like we were joking about this. Sonny Gray to Braves rumors, you Google it, and you're going to find a MLB trade rumors article from like 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. I mean, the guy is, I think, at this age in his career, 34. We talked about this, in the first episode. It just feels like, Logan, he he has the makeup of what the Braves want. The veteran guy you slot right in there, number 3 spot, and maybe I'm not going to go out on a limb and say he's going to capture what Charlie Morton did, but maybe he gets better with age. I mean, he had his best season coming off that age 33 season where, look, he's going to get to cash in on that, but maybe the Braves do too. It was a good marriage that worked out for Charlie Morton in Atlanta. Maybe they can capture that again. Logan, we kind of end today's podcast with the big fish. You kind of look, Steve Phillips over on MLB Network talked about this a couple days ago, where he said it after the Nola deal went down, it feels like Atlanta's pivoting to Sonny Gray, but don't count him out of the sweepstakes for Yamamoto, the flashy 25-year-old that took the MLB show, community by storm this past year, but also, the World Baseball Classic and everything in between. I know that you love Yamamoto. You've texted me a lot about this. I want to ask you this, though. If the Braves were a real threat to sign Nola when it comes down to the dollars and the years amount, Yamamoto being younger, it feels like they would be a real threat to do that too. I don't think that's out of the complete. I don't think that's out of the blue. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think if they're willing to spend big on Nola, that tells you they're willing to spend big, period. And Yamamoto's a guy that, look, I genuinely believe he's going to get over 200 million from a team. Just looking at the age, looking at what he's done in Japan. I mean, he's legitimately one of the best pitchers in that league history. I mean, the numbers are up there with Masahiro Tanaka, Shohei Ohtani, like all of those guys. He's right there with them, and in some stats, he's surpassed them. And he's only 25 years old. That's going to be so marketable for a franchise. And I think a lot of teams are going to look at the impact that Shohei Ohtani just had, and will want to pay up for that. It's just so interesting, right? Because the Braves, looking at the history as far as like Japanese pitchers go, it's like Kenshin Kawakami and nobody else.
Yeah, it's
right.
really been Kawakami. Yeah. But in his last year of his contract in Double-A Mississippi, that's how bad he was.
Yeah,
in an Atlanta uniform. Yeah.
Real ones remember the Roy Halladay battle, though. That was the that was the underrated Braves game right there. By the way, yes. Just a weird time for Atlanta. But no, I really like Yamamoto. I really like what he brings to the table. And look, I think there's always going to be that question of if it translates to MLB. But golly, just the potential that's there. I think that's worth 200 million alone. Will the Braves pay up for that? Will they be I think they will be in the mix. I just don't know if they're going to win the bidding war. I don't see this as like, if it happens, I'm over the moon excited. But I just, the pessimist in me just doesn't think it's going to happen.
I think where fans can feel rest assured, if the rumors were true, and that's what it hinges on for me about Aaron Nola, like if that was real, then you have to say, okay, the reason he won't be in an Atlanta Braves uniform in 2024 is not because they didn't want to pony up the money. Like I think that one of the first times for a lot of the fans that just want to scream on Twitter, and I get that, and yell about financial flexibility, those things. It feels like, this is something where they're going to test these waters, as is all other 30 teams. I mean, you joked earlier, the headline Braves reportedly interested in Yamamoto is going to, get clicks, but it's not really noteworthy. Of course, they're going to be interested in a 25-year-old that had better numbers than Yu Darvish when he's coming over, from Japan. So I'm with you there. What I thought was interesting, and we'll kind of end the show with this, is once again, Steve Phillips, who was a guest on MLB Network talking about this, he said he wouldn't be surprised to see Atlanta add 2 starting pitchers, Sonny Gray being in that market value and still being kind of a dark horse contender, a secret contender for Yamamoto. Logan, if they did that, that shows you an all-out push for a World Series title. I don't know how much I personally buy into that, just because I've never seen Atlanta do that. Doesn't mean it can't happen. But is one starting pitcher good enough for you, or do you want 2?
I mean, 2 would be fantastic, because 1 through 5 is set if that happens. But at the same time, I would be fine with 1, truthfully, because look, you think about what happens if you bring in 2. Like, say the Braves land, Gray and Yamamoto. I think that means this is the last year of Max Fried. I don't think they want to tie up that much money into starting pitching. And, you would hate to lose Max Fried, but that being said, Yamamoto, if he works out, it's a natural replacement, natural fit anyway. You would have to probably add another lefty at some point in the rotation, but at the same time, I would not mind getting two. But again, as you said, those headlines are so just funny to me. Like Braves interested in really good starting pitcher, Braves interested in really good player. So is every team. Every team would love to have him, right? But again, you just have to look at realistically, will it happen? I don't think they'll add two. But again, wouldn't surprise me if they added like a Sonny Gray and then they would go, someone on the back end, like just depth wise, because look, the number five, the number five starter role, especially if you get Sonny Gray, filled with a bunch of question marks anyway. And you have Bryce Elder there, who had a fantastic first half, but not so much of a second half. AJ Smith-Shawver, who again, great prospect, has a lot of potential. Is he going to realize that this year? It's hard to tell, right?
Yeah.
Just so many guys that you look at, and I don't know if the Braves are. I mean, the Braves, if 1 through 4 is set, maybe they say, you know what, let's give Smith-Shawver a shot because it's going to be such a low risk because he's a number 5. But I think what's more realistic is the Braves wanting to add that depth to where at worst you get a guy that can just eat innings at the number 5 and just not ask too much out of him.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It might be that 5th spot in the rotation. It's a chance for a young player to grow. And I feel like that's where the Braves often do go with the 5 spot. A guy that proves himself in spring training. You probably have 2 or 3 more guys that are going to be in Gwinnett that are capable of being in that spot. And you juggle it till about this is where I say that you kind of juggle it until about early June, Memorial Day, when you get a real feel of what's going on. And then if you really needed to go get another starter, you're going to spend the next month and a half to go find one at the trade deadline. I personally think that's what Atlanta will do. I'll put it right now. They don't have crystal ball predictions like we do for 24/7 Sports with baseball free agency. I'm putting 10 of 10 confidence in. I think Atlanta gets Sonny Gray. I kind of think it happens, and I just think it sits there. The 5th spot in the rotation is going to be what it is, and then we see what happens in left field, which the money they cleared out with those trades, maybe they go back and revisit some of the more high-impact bats that they could use in left field. So that'll be very, very interesting. But, Logan, we end the podcast with this, the all-important question. Thanksgiving is 2 days away. We're recording this, and this is going out on Tuesday. What has to be on your table when you get to lunch on Thursday?
I love it. This is literally every press conference ever this week, and I'm totally here for it too. Literally was just talking with my boss because Arkansas State does their press conference on Tuesday. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to hijack the press conference with a bunch of Thanksgiving questions so that we can have our show done and, we can have Thanksgiving. But to answer your question, got to have the mashed potatoes, right? I'm really big on sides, to me the sides make it the meal. Because look, I'll eat turkey, I'll eat ham, I'll eat just about anything if it's done right. And that's the big thing. It's got to be done right. People hate on turkey, but I think the people that hate on turkey, they haven't had it done right.
That's me. Hand up. That's me.
Yeah. Like people, turkey gets too much hate in my opinion. Do I still prefer ham? Yeah, I do. But but both are good, right? But no, huge on mac and cheese and mashed potatoes. That's been like my go-to since birth. The dressing's got to be on there. Thanksgiving desserts to me are just they're just mid.
They're kind of weird.
Yeah, they're just mid. I really don't have a favorite Thanksgiving dessert, truthfully. But it's all about the sides for me. Yeah,
fair enough.
You the same way?
I'm going to go with, look, I love a good mac and cheese, love good mashed potatoes. I will say I'm a big casserole guy. So I got 3 that are in the rotation that, my grandmother makes a mean green bean casserole that I really, really like, a great hash brown casserole. And I'm even going to go one more, which could be a dessert, meal, whatever you want to be, sweet potato casserole. You get a little sweet potato casserole, and I'm a big sweet potato guy. So, hey, it is what it is. But, we'll let us know in the comments. What is your go-to Thanksgiving meal? What do you got to have on the table? But Logan, I know you're making the trek back home, man. Appreciate you making the time. And we're going to regather because, look, we sleep. I don't know if we do this podcast. We technically never sleep because we're constantly talking about sports all the time. True. But, man, I know we're ready to get We're ready to get to the end of college football, regular season, bowl season. Congratulations. You're getting to go cover a bowl game potentially.
I never would have predicted this to start the season, right? I mean, Arkansas State's on ESPN to start the season, and Butch Jones goes viral for kneeling on the sideline, and A-State's blown out 73-0 in Oklahoma, get outscored 110-3, and all of a sudden they're sitting here at 6 wins and bowl eligible. So it is bowl projection season. I'm fully here for it. I have been religiously reading The Athletic, Action Network, ESPN, CB, you name it. I've read it. 24/7 Sports. I'll give a plug for you as well.
There we go. There we go.
So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, look, we love it. And make sure a couple things. Have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Check us out. Follow Logan over there on social media, myself as well. And we're going to have another episode coming out next week with hopefully some signings. If at the very least, we'll grade our Thanksgiving meals. We'll do that. We'll do that. And hopefully our families don't watch that one because it won't be too pretty. But hey, we'll talk about it. Logan, Whaley, my name is Bryce Koon, and we'll catch you next time here on the Chopaholic Podcast.